Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Kadri, have we had the opening prayer? Sorry.
Yes, we have.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I apologize. My laptop was on mute. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome again to another Micah Nigeria session. It's been a while. We've had everyone on Zoom, but December was a fun-filled month. We had a number of physical events, both off the Micah floor and on the Micah floor, but we're back on Zoom and it's a pleasure to be your host today. So here at Micah Nigeria, our vision is to see Muslims return to the state of Islamic excellence. Some of the programs we deliver include, but are not limited to, feeding the soul, creating a safe space, economic development, leadership and competency, capacity building, encouraging positive social interaction and promoting a passion for the deen. Please become a member of Micah Nigeria. You can do so by going on our website, which will be shared in the chat box shortly. We are also looking for volunteers. So if you have any skills that you think Micah can benefit from, for the sake of Allah, please express interest and we will share the form with you. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Micah Nigeria Lagos. Here you can catch up on events in the past that we've had that you may have missed. And if you're social media savvy, we have a lot happening on our Instagram page at Micah Nigeria. And for any other information, then please use the chat box to ask any questions and someone will be able to deal with your questions shortly. So today's topic is about resilience. So this month we'll be having a series around resilience. But before we start today's topic and before I actually introduce you to the speakers, I want to have a short poll about what your expectations are from this event. This will also give our speakers some sort of direction. So we're here for you. So we want to know, what are your expectations of today's event? So a link will be shared shortly in the chat box. I'm just waiting for Zainab to do so. And okay, so the link has been shared. It's the one that says www.menti, and a password should also be shared with you shortly. And just in a couple of words, just write what you expect from today's event. I think we'll just spend a couple of minutes on this. So kindly participate. The more people that participate, the more interesting it is for us. So, and I believe all your responses are anonymous as well. Thank you. Zainab, are you going to share your screen? I can't see any responses. Okay. Miracle boosting ideas. Just to have more tips on perseverance. Nice to know how well to prepare for unseen. I think I agree with these. Whether or not, we're into celebrating the new year, I think this period is a time where most people tend to reflect on what went wrong the year before and what they want to achieve going forward. So I think this is actually a perfect topic to be discussing in the month of January. So I'm loving all these responses. To share experience and gain insight on how to be resilient in the face of adversity. Yes, because quite often when we are faced with adversity, well, me personally, I tend to quit and run away from challenges. So I'm really looking forward to what our speakers will be sharing with us today. We'll just do this for one more minute and then we'll jump straight into it. So if you haven't put down your answer to the question, you have 1 more minute to do so. And we have a couple of people on the call today and we only have 4 responses. Come on, everyone. Kindly drop your responses. It's a team effort. Okay, thank you very much, Zainab. I think we'll end the poll now. Okay. Right, I'll jump straight in then. So today, as I mentioned, we'll be having the first part of the resilience series, how to prepare for the challenges you don't see coming. And we'll be joined by two amazing speakers today, Mr. Ibisomi and also Mrs. Remi Adedeji. So I'll start by introducing Mrs. Remi Adedeji. Following her bachelor's in accounting from University of Ilorin, Nigeria, she began her career as a financial accountant in the telecommunications sector. After 5 years, she moved to the financial services industry, where she worked for these financial institutions in Nigeria for 6 years. Prior to joining the MBA, Sister Aisha was the finance manager at Rand Merchant Bank, Nigeria, the investment banking division of the second largest bank in Africa. She's also a fellow chartered accountant and holds the CFA level 2, mashallah. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sister Aisha. We look forward to hearing from you. Mr. Ibisomi is the Executive Director, Finance, CFO, Company Secretary and Public Officer at African Reinsurance Corporation, South Africa Limited, Johannesburg. His 36-year career spans multiple roles in 4 industries, 5 companies and 5 countries. He is currently Executive Director, Company Secretary and Public Officer at the African Reinsurance Corporation in South Africa. He's engaged in leadership studies and has many publications and presentations to his credit. He is married with 3 adult children and enjoys watching soccer in his spare time. He is also committed to making further contributions to the corporate sector, especially through achieving sustainable and strengthening accountability in corporate governance. Thank you very, very much for joining us today, Mr. Ibisomi. So the structure of today's event will essentially be a panel session where I will ask you questions. And I just want to reiterate that if you feel at any point that my questions are quite limiting, kindly digress. We're here to gain as much as we can from you. So please, at any point, feel free to add to whatever I may ask you. So my first question, and we'll start with Sister Aisha, and then Mr. Ibisomi, you can pick up from where she ends. What is resilience? And how can resilience get us through difficult times? What is resilience and how can resilience get us through difficult times?
Okay, so Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and I would say that I'm excited to be back here on the mica floor again to share a little bit of what I have, and I do hope that Allah will forgive myself and everyone on the call for everything that we say that doesn't go right, and would also put barakah in the ones that would be beneficial to us. So going to your question, right, I will put my own personal definition to resilience. And the way I would term it is to say it's a kind of armor or shield that you build or you put on as you navigate through life challenges. Daily, it could be daily life, it could be unexpected challenges that comes our way. And a lot of that could be from your daily frustrating factors based on the environment that you find yourself. It could be due to personal crisis. It could be due to death of a loved one, unemployment, divorce, tragic accident, whatever it is. It could go from mild to very extreme situations. And resilience is not something that you can say, oh, this is how much of resilience I'm born with, or I can measure how much of shocks or whatever it is that I can withstand. It's something that you constantly have to build. And as you're building it, you strengthen and maintain it as you go through the phases of life. And I do joke with people that if you're born in Nigerian and compared to if you've had cause to travel out to some sane, climb, you can almost say that being a Nigerian and waking up to barrage of sad news is enough to, give you the kind of thick armor or shield that you need to live in this part of the world. But one thing also is I would say that we count ourselves lucky as Muslims because there's hardly ever any situation that is not covered with prayers. And for instance, if you're stepping outside of your house, there's a prayer you do. If you have a pain in your body, there's a prayer you do. If you're sad, there's what you can say. And so coming from that perspective, for me, my first point of call, I would say before we get to even how resilience can get us through difficult times, how do we build the resilience. So I would talk from personal experiences, what has helped me to navigate through, the different phases of the life that I've been through. And the first point of call for me is always the fact that I know that whatever I go through, Allah knows. So if you look at Surah At-Tawbah verse 51, where it says that there's nothing that ever happens except that Allah has ordained it. So, and when you look at Surah At-Hadid through 22, the verses through 22 to 23, it also talks about that there's no calamity or anything that happens on this earth that has not been ordained. That is not a decree of Allah. So the first point for me is always the fact that Allah knows. Allah is aware that this thing is happening. And then the second level of comfort and where I start to find inner peace is where Surah Al-Baqarah verse 286, when it says that Allah will not burden me beyond my capacity or my capability or what I can bear. So the second level is that I know that physically, emotionally, whatever it is, I can withstand this. I can go through this and still stand as myself. And so the other verse that I also like so much is the one that says that after every hardship comes the ease. And so I love that thing because it will take me to the point where when I start to talk about how to build the resilience itself, you will see where that comes in. So how have I built my resilience over the year? The first thing for me is that I accept the situation. A lot of people tend to be in self-denial. When things happen, they don't want to acknowledge or accept the fact that this has happened. And when you stay on that point for too long, it doesn't give you the room to take action, to change your situation. And so funny enough, I think I've shared my story before on Micah Floor, how I became a Muslim. So I have very close family friends. So sometimes I can put a call through and rather than say I have headache, I need to take a rest or take a Panadol or whatever. Yeah, my enemy has a headache. Or they don't say that they have the headache. So I always try to tell them that you have an headache. If you need to rest, rest. If you need to take drugs, don't say that your enemy has headache because first you're in denial that you have a headache that needs to be treated. So a lot of times, this is just a very mild example, but it can go to the extreme situation where people are in self-denial, And then the other part for me, when I move from the situation and I trust in Allah, this has worked for me. And the reason why it has worked for me is I believe in the verse that says that Allah is closer to me than my jugular vein. So because of that, what I try to do is maximize every touch point of the connection that I can have with Allah. So my tajud, I ensure that I do a lot of istighfar. I sometimes I look at the days that, the Prophet ﷺ has said it's good to fast. I fast on those days. I do a lot of sadaqah. And then I love this surah, the surah to dua, where, the prophet was down. He wasn't happy because he hadn't received any revelation for quite a while. And then Allah revealed surah to dua to say, I've not forgotten about you. I'm still here. And so I tend to, I tend to meditate on those a lot. And so moving away from that, there's something I call fighting permanence. And fighting permanence goes back to a research that I came across one time that says that we tend to overestimate how bad or how long a bad situation that we are in would extend to. And because of that, there's some sort of negative self-fulfilling prophecy that we stay in. And so for me, there's something that I call affective forecasting, where I try to say that how long will this situation last? In the next 3 months, would this still matter? Would this still impact this? So I try to estimate. So what that helps me is to frame that problem differently. Whatever I'm going through, I try to frame it differently. And I do that because if you continue to frame it negatively, it's very likely that you will not take any action that will take you out of that situation. So if you say that, oh, because this thing has happened to me, I will never feel joy again in my life, all of the actions that will then follow those framing will be things that will not give you joy. But if you say that this thing is just for a little while, but I know it will pass, then all of the actions that you will take will tend to take you to the place where you can make a change about what is happening. The next point for me is to adapt to reality quickly and see where I can pivot. And I do that based on a story that somebody spoke to the Prophet and said, I trust in Allah. And I said, Prophet said, trust in Allah, but tie your camel. So for me, it means take action. So if there's anything I need to do, yes, this is now my reality, and I need to pivot. I need to take a specific action. I'm not going to sit down and keep praying, hoping that things will change by itself. I will split it into controllable factors and uncontrollable factors. Those controllable factors for me, I know exactly what I need to do to make a change, and then I will ensure that I do that. So just to wrap things up, right? I will say that resilience is really about how you constantly recharge. It's not, as you go through phases of life, there's no manual to say this is a checklist of, if you check this, you'll be stress-free, you'll never have a problem. Allah said it that He will continuously test us. So there's no manual anywhere to go and do a checklist. So resilience is just how you constantly recharge, not how you endure a problem. So just to recap, I will say that we have to commit every aspect of our life to Allah, everything from your professional to your family to your social, every single thing about you have to commit to Allah. And then we shouldn't view setbacks as permanent. There's nothing permanent. You look back, I mean, if you're where you are right now, if you look back to some phases of your life, you realize that there are some situations that you've actually been in and you've asked yourself, how would this end? Would I ever get there? But you will now come back to this point and you realize that they've actually ended and you are better off. You have new learning curve to take you through another phase in life. And so one thing I would also say is focus on the events you can control. So a lot of people, they try to mingle things up. There's a part of, I love this concept called tawakkul, where you say, yes, I trust in Allah. I've done everything I need to do. Now I put the rest to Allah. But those parts where you can control that you need to take action, ensure that you start to execute those actions to make a change. Then don't see yourself as a victim. A lot of times people wallow in self-pity. They know the situation, but they just don't want to take action. They tell you all of their problem and you say, have you done this? They say, will it work? We got answer. They just don't want to do anything. So for me, I would say seek for sources of inspiration. Look back to the things that you've gone through and how you've excelled, how you've been able to come out of those situations and how you've been a better person. And lastly, I'll say always have a positive outlook on the future. I tell people manifest positivity. There are some things that, funny enough, I've somehow written down or I've wished for and prayed about it. Now, when they come to pass, I'm asking myself, this thing I can remember that I actually thought about it. I actually wrote it down somewhere and it's coming to pass now. So always ensure that your self-fulfilling prophecy is tied to a positive pathway. Don't be too negative about yourself or about your environment or about your surrounding. So I will share my story as I go on, but these are things that have been tested and trusted that have worked for me over the years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Aisha. I can't wait for you to share your experiences with us. That's my next question. So I'm looking forward to that. Mr. Ibisomi.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I thank you for the opportunity, and it's also a privilege to share the platform with Aisha. I've listened to her previously, and the comprehensiveness of her response to these first questions will tell the stuff that she's made of. I'm very, very proud that she's a chartered accountant like I am. So thank you very much, Aisha. So I just add a few points to that comprehensive response. There's nothing to add in the area of definition, but to say there are certain components of resilience that we can capture in a few words. You talk of persistence, you talk of steadfastness, you talk of focus, you also talk of flexibility, consistency, determination, discipline. She's already mentioned positive attitude, self-belief, courage to face adversity and all that. And you can also tell a thing, what a thing is by saying what it is not. Resilience is not self-doubt. It's not inaction. In fact, resilience is an active adventure. It's something you consciously do. You don't just lay back and say you are resilient. For me, that's like the resilience of a palm tree that can stand on the shores, withstand tsunamis and very, very extremely adverse situations. But if a lumberer goes there today and says, I'll be coming back to cut you down tomorrow. It will still be standing there, and the lumberer will get there and cut it down. So resilience is something that is conscious. It's something that you just have to be self-aware about in order to build on that. Then it can be personal, it can be specific to you, it can be a point thing. It can also be social, it can be communal. So it's something that we all need to be conscious about. If something affects everyone and can only be attended to by everyone, like the pandemic we all face now, there are personal sides to it, but there's also a communal side to it that governments around the world have led. So these are aspects and components of resilience that I would like to add to the comprehensive definition that Aisha gave. Then when we talk of how resilience can get us through difficult times, I'm happy that she has eloquently elaborated on the spiritual sides to using resilience to face difficulties. I would start from where she stopped to say, you don't just leave everything, stand akimbo and say you have prayed or you believe in Allah, you put your trust in Allah, and you expect miracles to come your way. No, you have to be mentally prepared to face adversity. You have to be physically prepared. You have to identify the resources that can make you cope well in situations of adversity. You must maintain focus, especially if you are a purpose-driven individual, which we would encourage everybody to be. You must remain focused. You must always be positive, like she said, and never give up on your dreams, on your purpose. I mean, once you identify, why am I here? What am I all about? I mean, what exactly do I seek to achieve? You don't give up on those. You work your way through the adversity to make sure you achieve your aim. In fact, for me, when you talk of adversity, it's like everything you do to make you survive. I mean, resilience is everything you do to make you survive adversity, to bounce back from adversity until you achieve your goals, until you triumph over that adversity and even become better after that. Then we should all know that, as the saying goes, tough times don't last. Only tough people do. So when you are stronger than the adverse situation that faces you, that's when you triumph. You must take control. She mentioned that also. You don't leave things for others to do for you. You take control of your own affairs. You take control of the situation, and everything that you can act upon, take the desired action. Anything that is uncontrollable, you accept your incapacity, your inadequacy, and see how to make the best use of it. Above all, we should all know that until death comes our way, it is never the end. So whatever comes up, you must know you can survive it. You can get through it. You can bounce back. You can flourish. So those will be my own comments to add to the comprehensive response that Aisha started with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ibisomi, and thank you, Sister Aisha. As previously mentioned, now we want some real life experiences and stories from you both about where you have been resilient, where you faced a challenge, but you didn't give up. So can you share the most unexpected challenge you faced and how you handled that? A few questions to consider. What was your biggest takeaway from the experience? Did it inform how you respond to other situations in the future? I think we can continue with you, Mr. Ibisomi, and then we'll pivot back to Sister Aisha.
Thank you very much. Interestingly, I would rather tell you how not to.
How not to.
Yeah. The
To
experience
be in
that
this situation? How not to be in this situation in the first place?
How not to react.
Oh, how not to react. Okay.
To an adverse situation. Because like I said earlier, you can tell what a thing is by saying what it is not. And you can tell how to react by saying how not to react.
Yes.
Okay. So if we agree to that premise, looking through my life, I would say one adverse situation I faced, interestingly, was the annulment of the June 12, 1993 elections. You know, Nigeria was transiting from military rulership to democracy in 1992. And ahead of that, had set up a business with a colleague. It was a company, effectively a partnership, but a company. I left my banking job and we started up a consulting stroke finance company and commodity trading outfit. It was a young company. We started from the scratch. I'm somebody who doesn't find it easy to do some things on the side while in full-time employment. So we started from the scratch after I left my job. And we were doing well as the transition program was progressing, but suddenly the presidential election was annulled. It's something that continues to today to define Nigeria, the prospects that Nigeria ever had, the opportunities that we missed. This affected the entire country. It affected businesses. It affected individuals. In my case, it affected me. It affected my business aspirations, and it affected the young business we had just set up. By the time the election was annulled, Nigeria was virtually treated as a pariah nation. The economy became very, very difficult to operate in, especially for startups. In the process, that was also the height of the time when most people were taking, they became what we used to call then as Andrew. They were taking flight from the country, relocating abroad. So everything virtually came to a standstill, and all of the funds that we invested went down the drain. I mean, especially for those of us who invested all of our savings, all of our time and energies. We had about 35 employees to fend for. Alhamdulillah, I'm happy for one thing that we did not owe a single employee. We, the shareholders, rather stomached all the losses. We had a very, very world-class board that could run any corporation in the world. I'm happy most of them went on to become notables eventually, and some of them are now retired. I keep reminding myself that if only we had succeeded, we would today have become a world-class outfit. So what did we do? By the time we were confronted with that, the reality of the situation that we faced, it was increasingly obvious that business operations was going to be very difficult. And as a startup, we were having difficulties to get by in the polluted environment that I would say we operated in. So we had to take a formal decision to discontinue the business. Now, why I say it's not, it's an example of how not to react is we did have other colleagues that started their own ventures at the time. We also had people who started or had very young businesses growing as of them, who never gave up. All that they did, which from hindsight, I would say we didn't do, was to cut their expenses, to minimize their commitments. I mean, you know, things that made them sustain losses and the like. Some of them even suspended operations, laid off staff, and all that. And come 2-3 years down the line, when the economy started picking up, especially from around August 1998, when the unfortunate deaths of the principal actors happened, but the country then came back alive, the economy started picking up. These businesses also started picking up. By then, we had closed shop, and as the businesses picked up, as of today, as I speak, some of them have become very strong players in the Nigerian economy. So, adversity should not be seen as obstacles in life. We should accept them as challenges that need to be surmounted. If it will require us changing our way of doing things, let us go that route. If it requires us to retool and re-prepare ourselves, let us go that route and not just give up because something has happened, especially something that affects everyone. This does not mean that we should not know when to cut our losses. Sincerely, if something has become totally inappropriate in an economic setting, we should not hesitate to cut our losses. However, we should not give in simply because some adversity has been visited or foisted upon us. Look at the COVID-19 pandemic that the whole world faces now. No doubt many businesses have shut down. No doubt so many people have lost their jobs. But at the same time, this is the time that some people have increased their wealth. They have thrived better than even in normal times. And what you then find is that when the rules of the game are changing, step back, understand what is evolving, and decide to pitch your position in a manner that will make you thrive. So for me, it's a lesson to say that adversity should be confronted courageously, meticulously, with the right resources, with the right frame of mind in order to overcome it and flourish by the time you overcome it. So that would be my own example for this discussion, how not to react to adverse situations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Ibisomi. That was an excellent story. And we have a comment from Afolabi. This is such a good story. Thank you for sharing. Thank you very much. Sister Aisha, would you like me to repeat the question or do you get the gist of the kind of experience?
I think you can just quickly repeat the question.
Okay, sure, no problem. So can you share the most unexpected challenge you have faced and how you handled it? What was your biggest takeaway from the experience? And did it inform how you respond to other situations in the future?
Okay, so I mean, right now I'm thinking which of the stories should I share? I think I have two, and I will touch briefly on the two. So the first one for me was when I got married. You know, when people get married, some people will plan that 2-3 years down the line, they don't want to have babies yet or so. But in my own case, it wasn't a plan. I just felt that you get married and automatically you then have to be pregnant. And so it became, you know, an interesting journey when the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, you know, nothing was happening. And so for me, in between that time, I could have, there were a lot of open options for me, but I was also very intentional and deliberate on how I wanted to approach that journey. And for me, the fact that I didn't know how long the problem was going to last I think also helped shaped the decision that for as long as I don't have control and I don't know how long this is going to last, I want to make the best use of this time. So in between that time, I think I had my hike and I had my CISA. I had 2 certifications around that time. I started my CFA, I started blogging. And in between blogging about fertility issues and the journey, I found out that I started to build a community of people who had similar issues that, you know, we started reaching out to each other. So the key thing for me is a lot of time, people who knew me then, I was in Abuja. And beyond all those things, I had other activities. We had a sister who was a Black American that married a Nigerian that, you know, organizes some sort of acrobatics and all that. I was involved. I used to do a lot of burger contests and shawarma contests. I had different activities everywhere. So there was really no time to sit down and wallow in self-pity that, you know, I was on a fertility journey. But one thing I know that stood out was, first, I'm from a Christian background. There was always that option of, oh, maybe because maybe Islam is not the right journey for you. Maybe you can come back to church and all that. So I had to deal with that. The other journey is, you know, family members seeing you and expecting that each time they see you, they want to see you in self-pity, in certain situations that everybody will know that something is wrong with you. That wasn't my situation, because I knew that I was praying. I knew the actions that needed to be taken. And then I knew the ones that I couldn't, that were uncontrollable factors for me that I had to hand over to God. But the ones that I knew I could be deliberate on was ensuring that I don't wallow in self-pity. How can I make the best use of the time? And I can tell you, by the time the fertility journey ended, and I used to tell people, why would I go through the route of being a miserable person that by the time the child comes, what they meet on ground is a miserable mommy? I don't want to be that kind of mommy. So for that, it was very intentional. And alhamdulillah, my prayer got answered, but I was very intentional about, you know, maximizing the opportunities that journey gave to me. The other one is very recent. 2021 was a bit of interesting drama. And I completed my MBA in 2020. I got back to Nigeria in December. And so for me, it was like, oh, considering my experience with about 14 years in financial service, financial accounting and all that, with an MBA from an international school, I was just going to get a job. So jobs were coming, but they were not the ones I wanted. And so 7 months passed. I eventually got what I thought was the right one for me. And within the first month in the job, I knew that this was not what I wanted. So I was really troubled. And I was troubled because, you know, a different variant is coming. You're starting to see another, you don't know what the economic situation will be the following year, how easy it will be to get a job. How do you wait for 7 months for a job? You get into it and then you leave after 1 month. I was really troubled. So I struggled through the first month. I struggled through the second month. By the third month, I made up my mind that, you know, I can't keep struggling. And in between all of this, everything I had said at the earlier part of this discussion, there were things I was doing. I was praying hard. I was fasting. I had the mindset that Allah knows, but in between, I was questioning Allah that, you know, I fasted, I prayed. If anything was going to come my way, it shouldn't have been this. I mean, the job it gave me a lot of mental stress. I had a lot of anxiety. It wasn't just what I wanted based on what I had asked God for. And so by the third month, I tendered my resignation. It was tough. And interestingly, around that time, my former boss then called me and said, Aisha, what is it? Why don't you want to come back here? You know, you never had any issue with us here, just that you wanted to go and add value. And then we started the conversation. And I kid you not, within 2 weeks, you know, everything that happened within 2 weeks were things that, you know, I would say that if I was to put a timeline to it, it would take me 6 months. And it was a better offer. The underlying conversation was the 3 months job that I did, because that was where the conversation then started. What are you doing with these people? Is this something we can replicate for you here and all that? And that department was created for me to come ahead and all that. So when I now look back, I tell God that, okay, I've been having a discussion with my boss from the beginning of the year, but I told him, yes, I want to come back, but some of the things I was doing before I left, I don't want to come back to it. So it might have been tough for him to say, yes, I want Aisha to be back, but I don't know how, in what capacity I want her to come back to. So, but then the conversation then came when I got that job to say, what are you doing for those people? Oh, we don't have anything here. So if we create this department for you, would you come back? I said, yes, of course. And so that was the beginning of the conversation. And I would say that 2021, despite the fact that for the first 7 months, it was a lot of questioning and why this, and then something happened and I said, oh, this is not what I wanted. And then it ended with, a very good story. So for me, everything I said at the beginning of the conversations were things that I had inculcated into the first part, my fertility journey, and then the second part, how 2021 went for me. So resilience doesn't come in, there's no format to resilience. It's just on how you constantly recharge and rebuild yourself, to face the constant situations that will come your way. So those are the two stories that I think that comes to mind easily. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Aisha. And did you feel that the resilience or the patience you exercised during the time where you were going through infertility, do you feel that helped you in any way, or that informed your responses to when you came back from doing your MBA and you were looking for a job? Was there any correlation between the two?
So, like I said, a lot of times you have to analyze your situation in such a way that you know what is controllable and what is not controllable, and the specific actions that needs to be taken. I could easily stay in the job that wasn't making me happy. But so I could easily stay there. And I mean, at a point in time when I got talking with the HR, they were like, look around the company and see where you can use your skills. But it was more about the environment for me. Then they said, oh, don't go. You can't even be earning your salary, just be doing your job. But I knew that wasn't what I wanted. And the same way when I was going through the fertility journey, a lot of time people expect to see me and they expect for me to cry on their shoulders and tell them about how my life is going and all that. But you either see me, I'm either reading for an exam or I'm going for one activity or the other, I'm running a community or something. So you have to be very intentional and deliberate about the things that you think will work for your situation. When people hear that I got into a job and 3 months I've resigned, and it wasn't just any job. It was a job that if anyone had the opportunity, I'm sure they would not even. So for them, people would say that, like, they don't understand how I take these decisions. But for me, it's about being intentional and deliberate about what you want to do. But of course, don't forget, prayer is the underlying foundation for all of these things. You have to keep praying. In between, I was telling God, this is not what I wanted. I don't want this. I don't know how long. I didn't have the courage to resign at first. So it was a matter of, I didn't know how long I was going to stay in this job to be able to get a better one. But I just told God I didn't want this job. So very intentional and deliberate, and take action. You can't continue to wallow in self-pity and say, yes, I just want to, keep enduring. No. You have to be very intentional and deliberate about the actions that will make a change in your situation.
Thank you so much for that, Sister Aisha. Thank you. So my next question, I think we'll start with Mr. Ibisomi on this one, because he mentioned COVID in his last response. So the question is, COVID drastically changed several people's plans, but there was still the expectation to still show up, right? So how are you able to recalibrate yourself and keep going? So this is for Mr. Ibisomi initially, and then Sister Aisha.
Okay, thank you very much. At the individual level, I'm somebody who dread even the slightest of medications. If you see me use a tablet, it means the matter has really got into a head, talk less of visiting a doctor. So at the individual level, it was a case of keeping to myself as much as possible. I will not take unnecessary risks. That was a time when, under the initial full lockdown, we realized that we could survive without going out. So that was the first lesson at the personal level. Then, when I took the vaccine, I again, because of my fear for all those things, I opted for the Johnson & Johnson single dose, so that it would be just one shot. And the reaction was totally unexpected. I mean, it was something that really knocked me down. And I took comfort from my daughter's comments at that time that, look, it means the vaccine is working, because they have introduced the virus into your body, so it has to work that way and all that. But as far as COVID was concerned, it really came as an unexpected and unwelcome disruptor. Life was certainly interrupted, was disrupted, and would unlikely be the same again. Those of us who one of our children described as office men became home-based, and we found ourselves having to operate within the confines of our homestead. We tried our best, and I think we still delivered. On the organizational level, COVID was the first real test of our preparedness to meet disasters. Every business, and even I think every individual, should have a continuity plan, how to ensure your life does not stop simply because some supervening events like a COVID pandemic has happened. So at the business level, it was our first real test of the efficacy of our business continuity plan. And fortunately for us, it worked. I mean, what we had put down really worked. So the first lesson for me was that, look, we need to plan. And planning means you have a goal that you have set ahead for yourself. You identify the steps you need to take in order to achieve those goals, and take what you believe will be the prevailing circumstances, the underlying assumptions, logical arrangement of things, everything remaining normal. Take that as plan A. We must always have plan B, plan C, and depending on the situation, more alternative plans. What will be your plan B will be the products of what in management are known as stress tests. If things don't work out the way you assume they will in plan A, what do you do? If you are an itinerant public speaker, for example, you earn your living by going around addressing people, making presentations and all that. And suddenly travel restrictions come up. What do you do? So it's very important that when you have your set of assumptions to build your plan A, your plan A is, I want to achieve this, and these are the things I require to achieve them, and this is how I will go about achieving them. Assuming all things being equal, like economists will say. But we all know all things are never equal. You now begin to juggle what can go wrong. And everything you consider as possibility of what can go wrong, you decide what will happen, what you will do should that happen. And so you begin to develop alternative plans, plans B, C, and so on and so forth, depending on the issue at hand. Then secondly, apart from planning, is you just have to be flexible. COVID-19 has taught us the advantage and the power in flexibility. You cannot insist you want to go out when the government has said you cannot go out. Or when you see that people are just picking the infections left, right, and center, you still want to take the risk only to foist more problems on yourselves. I'm happy for my country, Nigeria. Those of us who are out here, especially those of you who must have read about South Africa, we've seen the reality of COVID. I have lost somebody in the office. My next door neighbor died in my residence. The other neighbor, because I live in a block of apartments, on one side it was death, on the other side it was infection. And so it's real. It's something we could feel and see. And because of that, we now needed to be flexible, to be adaptable to the new reality that COVID has foisted on us. And that new reality is that we could no longer do things the way we used to do them. We were no longer free in terms of choice of action, in terms of choice of activity, even in terms of choice of what you eat and what you engage in on a daily basis. So it became inevitable that we needed to find alternative ways of accomplishing our goals. Fortunately for us, technology came to the rescue, and we all know that technology enabled us to kind of achieve some normality in our activities, including technology that involved placing orders for what you will need at home and getting them delivered to you, which was allowed in the circumstance of the lockdown that we faced here. So better planning, careful planning, designing options and alternatives for yourselves, being flexible, adapting to the situation that faces you, as well as re-strategizing without losing focus on your ultimate goal will be my response to the question around how I've coped under the COVID situation, both at personal level as well as at my employment level. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, sir. And sorry for the losses. May Allah continue to protect us all and protect you. Thank you very much for listening to us, sir. Thank you. Sister Aisha.
Okay, so interestingly, the all of COVID period, I was in a country where the COVID was really, where the country was badly hit. So first week in January was when I got to Spain. And of course, even though there were already stories about COVID from November in China, but it wasn't, if it wasn't in the country you were, you didn't think it was a big deal. So when I was leaving Nigeria, the plan was that my husband and my daughter were going to come for the holidays. For each of the holidays, school holidays, they will be with me in Spain. And so, of course, the program started. And I recall very well, there was a guy in my team who was from Switzerland. So when the COVID story started to gain ground in Spain, we're still hearing tidbits. The guy was really agitated. And I remember very well making fun of him and telling him that he's never going to get here, that nothing is going to stop, nothing will happen, that we'll continue to hear the tidbits and everything will still go on as normal. So you can imagine the shock. My apartment in Spain is like you living in 1004, and you can see Ozumba in bad way, every day, the volume of the cars, the traffic, and all of the drama that can happen on the road. So that's the way my apartment is always busy. So even times when I'm bored, I could just stay outside and, they could have carnival or whatever, I would always see things. And so imagine the shock when everything just shuts down immediately. If you followed the COVID story, Spain and Italy were the worstly and badly hit countries before it started to move to US and all other countries. Not a single bed was on the road, no car, no human being, nobody. And even when you come out of the apartment, you are sure that you will not see anybody. People were not coming out of the apartment. So that was the first realization for me that, wow, this is real. So the second part was, my husband and my daughter had put in the application for, to come to Spain. Of course, the airport was shut down. There was no movement at all. The embassy was shut down. And the school still didn't know what to do because nobody knew what COVID was, how it was going to change everything. The school didn't know what to do. And there were a lot of stories about people who were not even students, that were just regular Black residents that were being dumped on the floors of Spanish hospitals, because then it became a matter of priority. They would, of course, attend to their own citizen first before it even comes to, Black residents and students and whatever it is. So just imagine being in a country where you have nobody. I didn't have anybody in Spain. I remember when I was going and my colleagues were like, who do you know in Spain? I said, I don't know anybody. I'm just going to school there and come back. So imagine having nobody except the few Nigerians that I met also in the program. And also imagine that your family, you don't even know if they're going to make it to you at all. The embassy was closed, everywhere was closed. But one thing was, it was a reality that we had to adapt to. It was a reality that I had to accept. I didn't have control over anything. But what we then did was I spearheaded, getting the Nigerians in the program, all of the programs within the school. We opened a WhatsApp group, and every day we kept checking on ourselves. Sometimes we do Zoom calls just to ensure that everybody was well. There was no concern. And thank God for technology as well. Zoom was always there. I was connecting with my family every day. People were checking up on me because it was really bad in Spain before, US and all others picked up. So, but one thing that taught me was, when I was leaving Nigeria, I left with high hopes. Of course, I was going to Europe. I wanted to tour the city. I wanted to, connect with a lot of people. I had plans. And so just getting there, and then within the first 3 months, every of your plan, everything that you had scattered. So, but it was also a time to accept the situation and realize that there was really nothing you could do beyond the ones that were controllable. So for the people that I met, that I felt I could reach out to through, technology, I was still able to, enjoy myself a bit. When the city started opening up, I think I still did about 4 cities in Spain. I also ensured that for the purpose of, getting into the program, that was maximized into technology, making use of technology. And also my family members, they didn't end up, they couldn't make it eventually, because when Spain got better, Nigeria then picked up. So there was no way they could. So, but eventually it was more of prayers. It was more of, connecting to people around me, the community effort that we put in for the Nigerians that were there. And then eventually using technology for a lot of the connections. If I know that I needed to get in touch with you, I'll send you an email if you could do a Zoom call. Otherwise, I would have asked for a coffee meeting or whatever, but I knew that wasn't possible. So Zoom was there, Microsoft Teams and all that. But at the end of the day, 2020 was what it is. I still handed my program as top of my class. It didn't stop me from ensuring that the goal that I went there to achieve, I achieved it. So I think that's my COVID story. And in between, I think towards the end of the year again, when it seemed that everything was getting better, then NSAS then came about. And a lot of the videos, so imagine being elsewhere and then you realize that this thing is really close to you. So my house is really close to the toll gate. So it was always that scare of what if this breaks out into the estate, what is going to happen in terms of safety and security. Well, alhamdulillah, everything went on fine. Program went well, came back to my family well. And yeah, that's my COVID story.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much. So that was an amazing hour. We have a couple of questions, and if we still have some time after the questions that have been shared by the audience, then I have one more question that I wasn't able to ask, so I'll ask that. So the first question is, please, what is your advice to start up a school business at this period of new normal? I think this question is for Mr. Ibisomi, but Sister Aisha, after Mr. Ibisomi answers, please feel free to add any tips that you may have. So Mr. Ibisomi, the question is, what advice do you have to start up a school business at this period of new normal? I assume that's referring to COVID.
Yeah, definitely. The new normal is now something we all know is no longer what used to prevail. Person-to-person contacts are now limited, and the freedom that we used to enjoy doing things our own way is now constrained. Well, let me say, I take the question as coming from Nigeria, where we know that education as a commodity remains a hot cake. The first piece of advice I'll give the person is, does that person have passion for education, for teaching, for imparting knowledge? That passion must be there. Then the neighborhood where the person is located needs to be understood, whether there is a market for whatever educational institution the person is thinking about. As we know, there are different levels of education. right from crèche to university, and now to some specialized institutions that focus on particular aspects of life. So that person needs to pitch where he or she thinks his strengths are, his capacities are, his knowledge, his passion, where they all are, together with where the market is for the person. Then you now move into what media will be used. Under the prevailing circumstances, right from secondary education, certainly, and in many cases at primary level, the media for conveying knowledge has shifted from interpersonal contact to technology-based media. So that person needs to know what media will work best for the kind of institution he or she wants to set up. But if I assume that, we are looking at what we used to do, just again, something I don't subscribe to, look for a 2 or 3 bedroom flat somewhere, and you believe school has started. I would not encourage that. I've never really supported a situation where somebody will just start an educational institution from an inappropriate environment. So it's absolutely important that this person formulates or maybe kind of prepares all of the resources that will be required to have a sustainable institution. Many people go into setting up schools for the wrong reasons. They believe there's money to be made there. Money eventually comes. However, it doesn't start from day one, because the growth of a school requires constant reinvestment. So if this person's interest is of a long-term nature, then fine, that person will be encouraged to have a long-term vision of where the permanent site will be and where to start from before getting to that state. So I don't think the new normal discourages anyone from setting up a school. It only would modify how to impact the knowledge, depending on the environment, depending on the target audience, depending on the level of education that the person wants to pitch. If I were to start, say, a secondary or tertiary institute now, I'll be less interested in physical facilities. I'll be more into building a very, very formidable platform on the internet that I can attract students from anywhere and everywhere in the world. And so my medium of communication will be out there in the technology space. But if this person is looking at starting something in a neighborhood, then definitely observance of normal public health protocols and advices will be very critical. So I hope I've scratched it on the surface, but if it is something that calls for greater discussion, I will make myself available if Micah can facilitate my getting across to the questioner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ibisomi. So are you happy with us to maybe share your email address with, I think who asked, it was Mr. Tyro.
Yeah, please.
Do that.
Okay. Even if you have my phone number, you can give my phone number.
Thank you very
much. You do. Yeah, if you have my phone number, it's something I can give and share with everyone, please.
Thank you. There's someone else who actually said that they would love to have a conversation with you. They have a business collaboration for you on how to acquire businesses in South Africa using leveraged buyout. So I assume they would probably want your contact as well. So that's why I was asking your permission.
Please go ahead and give it to them. That might even serve to benefit me, because I retire in 4 months' time.
Inshallah. May Allah make it a successful one. And put
Ameen.
Yes, sir.
So I will be very much available.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So we'll facilitate that on the back end. Sister Aisha.
Okay, so thank you very much, Brother Ibusumi. So I think the area that I'm going to come in is typically when you look at how entrepreneurship is done in other climes to how it's done here, most time we start to come from the side of also culture. So where I would start from here for this person is to say that what problem are you looking to solve? And so for me, when you talk about problem discovery, it could be that is from your personal pain points. Maybe at some point you wanted some sort of educational solution for your child that you didn't get. Or it could be that it's from other people's experience. You knew people were trying to get this solution and there was none. Or it could be black swan events such as COVID, or it could even be that you've gone to look at the sustainable development goals and you know, there's a right to education for all, which is not what we see, and you're looking to solve that problem. So for me, the first question I'm asking this person is, what problem are you solving? So have you gone through the entire process of the problem discovery? Then the other point is, if you say that the opening a school in whatever form or shape is what you want to come up with now, that is your solution to whatever problem you want to solve. Have you done your customer validation? And what customer validation helps you to do is to adopt a lean startup, what they call a lean startup, where you don't go all out and you would have invested so much, and then it turns out that nobody wants your solution. So have you taken time to go through a customer validation to test that solution that people are actually going to buy into your solution, knowing fully well that you're solving a specific problem? So again, if you're going to start that school, what is the value proposition that you're bringing on board? Why is it that if I take 10 of your solution, why is it you that I should pick? What are you offering differently from what is currently existing in the market? And each time that I sit with founders, what I tell them is, for a lot of the time, you're not inventing. So whatever you're bringing is likely not to be new. You're only innovating. And so from that perspective, what is your unique and unfair advantage that you're coming with? So for this person, I will say, research into the EdTech space. I know that there are a lot of EdTech founders that have raised funds in 2021 in Nigeria. Look at what they are doing and look at what they are doing differently. And Brother Ibisomi mentioned something very important. Within the supply chain of educational activities, which verticals are you going to play in? So is it the K1, is it the K12, is it the K3? Which of the, what problem are you solving, and at what touch points within that value chain of educational activities that you want to bring on board? The other one for me is, what will be your go-to-market strategy? Because don't forget, you are not the only person that is, for every idea or every solution that you think you have now, you'll be amazed that there are about hundreds of people who are also thinking about the same thing that you want to do. So what will be your go-to-market strategy? Who are going to be your customers? What will be your pricing strategy? So you have to take time to look at all of these things before you just, go and open a school. You must ask yourself the real question. What problem are you solving? The solution that you have to solve this problem, have you tested it? Have you done your customer validation? There are a lot of lean startup techniques that you can use so that you don't have too much of sunk cost, or you would have invested so much and then it turns out that you have no customer. So you must ensure that you do that customer validation. And the other thing is look at the competition. There are a lot of EdTech that are raising funds now. What are they doing differently? Are they playing in your own verticals? And where can you then come in and make a difference that will make people to listen to you? So every other thing, but Ibisomi has touched on, but ensure that you go through that entrepreneurial structured process so that you don't end up at the tail end and then it turns out that you've only solved a solution, you've only solved a problem that only you has that problem. Nobody else is looking to solve. So just ensure that you do all of those homework very well. Research into the vertical, ensure that you have a unique value proposition that you're going to come with. Understand your cost structure. That is what one of the things that Ibisomi also mentioned. Are you looking to get a physical structure, or you can use technology to address the problem? Understand the cost structure of whatever business you're trying to do. So there's a whole lot more, but just ensure that you go through that process so that you don't burn out easily.
Thank you very much, Sister Aisha.
Inshallah.
Mashallah. I think the person who asked this question has dropped off, but I do hope they were able to pick up the majority of that. Thank you. So the next question is for Sister Aisha. And somebody asked, what were the drivers of the decision to return to Nigeria after your MBA?
So interesting. So like I said, I mean, if I was to, my experience really, I think is about 14 years as an accountant. And when I was leaving, the intention wasn't to relocate. I'm not a fan of relocation. I'm not personally, I'm not a fan of relocation. So the intention was to go for the program and come back. And strongly, I believe that I have more opportunities here in Nigeria to grow my career to where I want it to be than to go and start afresh in another country where somebody is going to discount me. No, I feel that. So the intention really was to go for the program and come back. So I'm not a fan of relocation. So that was the driver.
Thank you very much. If I can add a little, because the reality of our situation in Nigeria today is virtually everybody thinks if they cross the border, they've arrived. But those of us outside, number one, if you don't like being a second-class citizen, please stay in your home country. Number two, if wealth is the driver, I normally tell people, go and conduct the study. The richest people in the world are based at home. When I mentioned that at a discussion here in South Africa, somebody asked me, what of Elon Musk? Elon Musk is a South Africa-born person, but who is now American. So what exactly is driving people out? I don't know. The opportunities in Nigeria are far more than the opportunities you find elsewhere. You don't ignore the 200+ million people that we have. You don't ignore the unexplored resources that we have. You don't ignore the fact that, in fact, one of the things we do wrong that wants us to run away. Nigeria, we can acknowledge a lot of inefficiency in the public sector. That creates opportunities for the private sector. But most of us don't see those challenges, those inefficiencies as opportunities to be capitalized on. So the motivation, and Allah knows, I've attended so many interviews back in Nigeria, wanting to return to Nigeria when I was posted out. But it never worked out, so I had to accept fate. So to the questioner, I will never discourage anyone from seeking opportunities abroad. But please be clear as to what you are looking for. If you interact with the average expatriate, as I would describe them, or those who have emigrated to the US, they will tell you that $1 that you see, what they go through to earn it is unbelievable. So I will never discourage people, like I said, but please be clear as to what it is you are going out there for. And don't be deceived. Get all your facts right. I cannot leave my home where if I decide to go into ordinary farming, despite the insecurity, I will make much more money in a dignified manner than going out there to become a delivery person. So I don't want to discourage anyone, but please know the purpose and get your facts right. Do not be deceived. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your honesty and the advice. Thank you. Okay, so the next question is around business. So whoever feels comfortable to take this, please feel free. So a young entrepreneur that has been in business for the past 7 years and running it as a sole proprietor, but now looking for partners for the business to change directions, how can he or she go about it? Does anyone want to take?
Yeah, well, for me,
Thank you.
you must have shared vision, shared ideas with anyone you want to go into business with. And there are very many options to follow. You can go public, and when we say public, you start from people who are close to you to people who they are also close to, in order to assemble a team of people who believe in you and believe in the business you are doing. Through them, you can now raise funds and acquire additional resources to grow the business. But it's absolutely important that you find harmony, you find a commonality of interest in the people you are going to work with. If you set up a business that you intend to grow to a very sustainable level before it starts paying dividends, for example, don't partner with somebody who wants immediate returns. You can learn, there are so many case studies out there. If you can read about the stories of different enterprises, even within our setting in Nigeria, how they started from humble beginnings to becoming what they are today. If you go read the story of GT Bank, for example, or Zenith, the way they started and how they grew without allowing any leakages until they become formidable institutions that can now do as they please, if I can put it that way. If you also look at other institutions, you know, public forums, you have to be careful giving examples that may have adverse impact or that may represent adverts, unpaid advertisements for such institutions. But my advice is, please look for people who share your vision, who believe in you, who believe in the model of the business that you are putting together in order to grow the business from sole proprietorship to either partnership or even limited liability company. May Allah guide you, all right.
I mean, thank you, Mr. Ibisomi. Sister Aisha, do you have anything to add?
Yes, so I think Brother
You're
Ibisomi,
a founder, aren't you? You're a founder of a company, aren't you?
yes, but I think I would term myself more as a financial advisor than an entrepreneur, though I work with a lot of the entrepreneurs, a lot of founders. So, but one thing my first point of question for this person is, why at this point? Why now? And why do you want to look for partners? If you look at the data, if there's any reason that startups fail, one of the key reasons that startup fails is the lack of cohesion between the team. So, which then goes back to what Brother Ibisomi has mentioned about the shared vision. So why now, and why do you want to bring in partners now? And why do you want to bring on partners for the business? So you must be clear about that objective, knowing fully well that if you get it wrong at this point, everything that you've worked for in the last 7 years might just, I'll put a question mark. So then going back to, if truly there's a reason for you to have partners, I know most of the times when investors are assessing your business, they always tend to prefer a business that is run by a team than by a solo founder or a solo business owner. And the reason is very, very simple. When you look at teams generally, you're looking at diversity in thinking. You want people with complementary skills that can really run the business. And investors are always very keen on ensuring that you have team. They're looking at their history, what they've done in the past. They're looking at the skills. In fact, sometimes they're looking at gender, the gender composition, male, female, and there are just a whole lot of things around the team composition that they look out for. But you must be clear on the purpose for looking out for a team now. And if it's about funding, I'm going to ask this person, how well have you structured your business from the time you started it to now? Because if it's from a point of expanding the business and looking for funding, you probably have to you'll be asked a lot of questions around how well you've structured your business. Can you tell what your revenue is? And can you tell you what your unit economics is, your operating margin and all of that, how your business has done well in the past 7 years from both a financial and operating point of view? How well have you structured that business? It's also very important that before you even bring anybody in, you have all that sorted out so that when they're coming in, they know what they are plugging into. Is possible that there's a gap that they need to fill. So maybe, for instance, you're an engineer CEO and you've run it, but you continually see that from your financial angle, there's always a problem or there's always a gap. So there's a need to bring in a CFO, but you want the CFO to also be a founder or your co-founder. So then you know the person is coming in to fill a gap. So ensure that that structure is very clear so that for the reasons that you're looking for your partner, they can come in and plug in immediately. And for the reason that you're looking for fund or expansion, that objective will be stated clearly and then you can implement appropriately.
Thank you very much, Sister Aisha. We have a couple of minutes left because we want to do a poll, but there's this question that Mr. Ibisomi shared with us that was sent in privately. So I'll ask the question, and could I ask both of you to, in 1 minute, respond to the question, please? So how do we protect our mental health in the face of adversity as part of resilience? So Sister Aisha, let's continue with you, then we'll pivot back to Mr. Ibisomi.
Or maybe, I know she can never be caught unawares. Because I got the question, maybe I should start. And that will give her the opportunity to prepare better because she's going to handle it better than I would. Me, I'm old school. For me, I will simplify it, not because the question is simple or little. I think it's a weighty question. And I know the psychologists and medical practitioners will do much better on this than I would. But the way I will simplify it is this. First, you need to know yourself. Try to know what it is that works for you and what doesn't. Some people like to be alone when adversity strikes. And some others need people to mill around them so that they don't lose it. So first, do a self-check, self-examination, and know yourself. I think that is absolutely important. Then, secondly, try to socialize, work with people of like mind. You know, I think Aisha's story around the fertility challenge was really, really very touching, but at the same time, very useful in circumstances like this. Rather than isolate yourself, it's better to work together with people who have similar situations as you find yourself in, or with whom you can share your story and who would kind of offer some social and psychological support. Because for one thing, let us all know that everybody at any point in time has one thing or the other that they are dealing with. So know that you are not alone. It's not a case of, oh, you versus the rest of the world. No, everybody has something that they are dealing with. So it's absolutely important that we find company in people who will help our cause, who will help us maintain sanity in the face of the potential adverse impact of the adversity that you are faced with. So you must be close to those who will encourage you, those who will inspire you, those who will relieve the adverse impact of the situation that you find yourself in. Then it's also important, even when I said know yourself, we all need to be realistic. We all need to know that we are human. And as human beings, we have our own moments of weakness. we have our own vulnerabilities and the like. The strongest man in the world will have a weak point. That is the nature of who we are as human beings. So all of these are important for us to know that, look, you don't, because of one event, however terrible, lose it all. We've had stories. I remember back in Nigeria when you find somebody, I think it was an air disaster somewhere in the east, where somebody lost his entire family. I remember late President Shagari of blessed memory lost 4 sons in one day to an accident. So whatever be the situation, know that yours cannot be the worst that has ever happened or that will ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
We do have stories in the Quran. One of the prophets who lost everything, I don't know, I think it was Prophet Ayub, alayhi salam, who lost everything, but remained faithful, pious, and trusting in Allah. And at the end of the day, what happened? He got more than double what he had initially. Then a number of things we consider negative make us close our eyes to the positive side of things that we should, as much as possible, avoid. Aisha did mention earlier that we need to be positive. So let us focus on the positive side of things. Nothing is absolutely bad. You will find some positivity there. If loss is measured by way of death, which for me is what is final, I'd mentioned before, that never take anything as being final unless it is death. If it is a case of losing someone because of death, permanent loss, then know that it could have been worse, because you could be taken to run from pillar to post, and dissipate all energy, all resources, and all that. And at the end of the day, the person still gives up. So let us appreciate that we are not alone in our situations. Whatever we are faced with cannot be the worst. In fact, I have a friend who normally says, in the world, everybody is a middleman. You always see people who are better than you, and you also see a multitude who are worse than you. So let me leave my 1 minute at those 300 and something seconds.
Sister Aisha, unfortunately, because of time, it's either I ask you to keep your response really short or we have to just close very soon.
No, we have to listen to her, please.
Sister Aisha, please, 30 seconds, please.
Thank you very much, Brother Ibisomi, and I really do appreciate, those comments. And I think you've practically touched on everything that I would have said. I mean, from gratitude to, having sense of humor, having self-confidence in yourself, being very intentional and deliberate to support connection, and in fact, self-compassion on yourself. There are things that you've all touched on. And I will just end with the fact that, perception to whatever you're going to is very key. Do you term it as a traumatic experience or as a learning opportunity for you to learn, opportunity to grow with Allah, or even opportunity to be grateful to Him? And one thing I always tell myself is I like those things that happen that takes me back to Allah, that gets me closer to Allah than drive me away from Him. So for me, every time is always an opportunity to, get closer to Allah. So thank you very much, Brother Ibisomi, for
Thank you, Sister Aisha. Thank you, Mr. Ibisomi. Sister Aisha, could I ask you to make a closing prayer for us? So we'll end with a prayer, then we have an exit poll. So please kindly stay in the audience. We want to hear from you about what you've benefited from this event. But Sister Aisha, could you just do a closing dua for us? Thank you so much to both of you, actually. May Allah bless you. May Allah reward you. May Allah let this weigh heavily on your scales on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah. Thank you for giving up your time on what I assume is a beautiful Sunday, wherever you are. Thank you so much. So could we have a dua from you, please?
Yeah, I would have said that you've practically said the dua already.
Adora Kimkwaju, that's what I always say. Pray for us, please. I
mean, we thank Almighty Allah that we picked this day, and of course we've we are here ready to share our experience. And so we thank Almighty Allah for all the things we've listened to. We pray that He will put His barakah in it and also help us to live a lot of some of the key life lessons that we've taken from here. If there's anything that we've said that wasn't appropriate, we pray that He will forgive us. And then we pray that as we go about, our daily activities from this time upward, He will continue to be with us, guide us, show us and shower us with His mercy, His favor, His barakah, His istighfar, so that everything we touch will be a form of blessing, not just to us, to our family, to everybody around us. They would see that we are Muslims and we are Muslims with impact. Inshallah.
Amen. Amen. Jazakallah khair. Mr. Ibisomi, please also add your prayer, please.
No, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. We thank Allah for the opportunity of this session. We want to pray that the session will be beneficial to each and everyone who has been part of it, who was involved in it in this world, in our graves, and in the hereafter. Where we have said the right things, may Allah accept. Where we have said the wrong things or committed sins, may Allah forgive us, and may Allah dispose of our individual or collective affairs in the right way for us. Ameen.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much to both of you. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here today, and I've benefited so much from what you shared today. May Allah ease all your affairs. Thank you very much. To our participants, I've just shared a link, menti.com. Kindly click that link and use the passcode. And we want you to tell us how you benefited from this event. What did you enjoy? And Mr. Ibisomi and Sister Aisha, could you stick around, please, to see the results? Let's hear from the audience and see what they liked about today's event. So I have shared the link. Zainab, could you please share your screen so we can see what everyone's saying? Thank you. So as I said previously, this is meant to be interactive. So the more you take your time to actually share, the more we can benefit from this session. Okay, Luqman, thank you. I appreciate the speakers, quite illuminating, shared experiences, extremely beneficial and flawless use of my time. Alhamdulillah, no situation is the end. Being resilient and patient pays in the long run. I like that. And I also like Mr. Ibisomi's tip of how not to react. I really, really like that. And Sister Aisha's emphasis on tawakkul, really helpful and practical as we face adversities in one form or the other. Yep, thank you. So we'll keep this going for about a minute and then we'll round up for the day. So please share your responses. It's quite nice to know what everyone's thinking, as we don't really get to hear from you as participants. So this is an opportunity for your voice to be heard. My takeaway was being insistent and being intentional in what we do. Resilience is mind-changing, yes. And I also like the emphasis on positive affirmation. The power of words and the power of the mind, I think, is something we often take for granted. Any more? 30 seconds, this is your opportunity to make your voice heard. My takeaway is to remain focused. They were frank. Unfortunately, we've had to end. It was an amazing session. Thank you so much for all the gems that you shared with us. We hope to see you as participants as well in more of our MICA sessions in the future, Mr. Ibisomi and Sister Aisha. And may Allah bless you and your families. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Thank you.
Mr. Ibisomi. Shukran.
Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed myself.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed you too.
Ibisomi, you have to, this your retirement, this thing, we need to tap into your time as a mentor, because I think there's a lot you can benefit humanity with. Same goes with Sister Aisha. You know, your comments were deep, intentional, and it showed that these people know what they are talking about. And I liked your, Andrew, your question, your response to the checkout people. A lot of times when people travel abroad, I think it's even tough. I don't like UK, for example. UK is, to me, is one of the most hostile places because if you don't have money on your own, there's nobody, everybody is in a rat race. So we thank you.
Everywhere is like that, my dear brother. But honestly, it works differently for different people. For some people, it may well be the rightmost step to take.
Indeed.
Especially if they are severely underutilized in the country. But if people don't define their objective and they just say, oh, Ibrahim is in South Africa, therefore let me go, they would have gotten it wrong, honestly. So I like the questioner because I'm going to relate with him now. I've requested to get in touch with him.
Okay.
Yeah, he has sent me his number. I'll call him after this discussion, inshallah. If you want to do exactly what Sister Aisha has done, to acquire more knowledge, to maybe build yourself further, and then return home to do all that your new knowledge, new skills can enable you to deliver at home. Brilliant. And I also have no problem with people emigrating, but don't emigrate for the wrong reasons. That's the one I hate. You now go, a chartered accountant will now go out there to be doing unthinkable things. As a chartered accountant in Nigeria, I hope I'll be able to document my story one of these days. Those who are close to me know that when we stopped our business, before I decided to go back into paid employment, I tried my hands through a cooperative society selling fabrics. I went to a Jumata. I carried bales of fabrics on my shoulders as a chartered accountant. Then when I went to market one of my very close friends in his bank, somebody who trained with me saw me and disappeared. Then after I left, my friend now came to me to say, one guy came to me now. He said, "Is that not Ibrahim?" And I told him, yes. What is he doing here? He's selling fabrics. So the guy was wondering. This was one of our best students in class, during the ICANN exams. So what is he doing here? That is where our people get it wrong. If you don't know how to make things out of nothing or out of little, you always complain about Nigeria. But I keep saying it. I've seen, and I give all respect to the Igbo guys. When I was in Texaco, there was one guy who started out with 50 naira selling peanuts. In 3 years, he had started selling electronics. That's the kind of opportunities we have in Nigeria that we miss. And I don't know when we are going to get it right. I think it has to do with our mentality and mindset, believing that, okay, let's not go abroad. In the olden days, people in the villages believe that you only need to get to Lagos and your life is made up. At least I remember very well. Going to Lagos in those days, after the Civil War, was like, you have arrived. And Lagosians, the fanciful ones, when they came home during the December holidays, you see them borrowed necklaces or chains or golden chains and the like. They'll come and flash it in the village. By the time you go out to see where they were staying in Lagos, those are people who will cram themselves into a single room and will say they are living a life. Whereas, as young as I was, I had a room to myself in my father's compound. So, in any case, don't let me take your time because I think it's different strokes. Different strokes for different people, honestly. Different people should just understand themselves and know what they're really looking for. they shouldn't work other people's scripts.
Nice one. It's been a pleasure, sir.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
We operate in the same industry.
Yeah, I believe so. But ours is a very resilient industry.
Yes, yes.
And we are there to assuage people's sufferings, to restore them back to their previous positions. So I really like insurance. I believe in it. And I believe that when people have an idea that they are contributing into a pool in order to mitigate the losses of a few who will be unfortunate, I think from that perspective, insurance is fine, it's legit. It's not as if you are throwing money away. You are helping somebody somewhere. So thanks for bringing that in. And Sister Aisha, thanks a lot for sharing your stories with us. I think it's about the second time I will listen to you. So please keep up the good work. I pray Allah to continue to guide you, to bless your efforts, and to accept your efforts as ibadah. Mariam, thanks very much. I've also attended a couple of your programs before. Keep it up. Inshallah, you keep on rising. May Allah elevate you to great heights. So thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Abdul Rashid, thanks a lot. Let's remain in touch, please. I would like to have your number. I think we need to relate better than on LinkedIn. I read LinkedIn maybe once in a week,
noticed.
if I can put it honestly.
I'll send my number, sir.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. Thanks very much. All right now. Yeah. Bye for now.
So Quadri, you can stop and Zainab the YouTube video.
Yeah.
So you can log out. You can log off, sir.
I try to log out.
Excellent, Miriam. Excellent. Alaji Obile Jazakumullah Khairan. You made the connect, and may Allah continue to reward.